This is Inside Indiana Business Radio for the afternoon of Thursday, November 2nd, 2023. I'm Kate Sharon. Holiday spending in November and December is expected to grow between 3 and 4% over 2022 levels, reaching a new record, according to a forecast released Thursday by the National Retail Federation. That increase will bring spending to more than $957 billion, which the NRF says is consistent with the average annual holiday increase of 3.6% that took place from 2010 to 2019 before the pandemic. Brad Runyon, a professor of retailing at the White Lodging J.W. Marriott Jr. School of Hospitality and Tourism Management at Purdue University, also agrees with the NRF's forecast that online spending is expected to rise again this year as well.
I think we're going to see a continuation of that trend this fall and into the holiday season that we've seen for the last 10 years, which is an increase in online shopping versus brick and mortar shopping.
The NRF expects retailers to hire between 345,000 and 450,000 seasonal workers this year to meet the demand of the holiday season. That's in line with the 391,000 seasonal hires made in 2022. North Carolina-based Cadence Petroleum Group bought Indianapolis-based Hoosier Pen Oil Incorporated in mid-October, the companies announced. Details of the acquisition were not made public. Cadence, which is backed by Wellspring Capital Management LLC and produces lubricants, fuel, antifreeze, diesel, exhaust fluid, and other products. It also recently acquired Elkhart-based Yoder Oil Company Incorporated. Founded in 1976, Hoosier Pen is a bulk and package motor oil, lubricant, and other car-related chemical distributor. It also operates as a car dealership, as well as an oil change and detail shop in 3 locations in Indiana, including Indianapolis, South Bend, and Jeffersonville, as well as a Kansas City, Missouri location. Schneck Medical Center in Seymour is ranked at the top of the best hospitals for nurses in the U.S. list from nursing career and education website TopRN to BSN.com. The ranking used data from sources including U.S. News and World Report rankings, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and the American Nurses Credentialing Center. Schneck is the only Indiana hospital on the list, which ranks the top 30 hospitals that, quote, offer a quality environment for nurses and their patients. From the #1 source for Indiana business news, this is Inside Indiana Business Radio.
Get ready, Indianapolis. IBJ Media, Inside Indiana Business, and the Indiana Economic Development Corporation invite you to the annual Engage Central Indiana event. It's presented by CareSource, Indiana University, and Old National Bank. Wednesday, December 6th at the JW Marriott. We'll be diving into talent, education, and other issues shaping the Central Indiana economy. More at ibj.com/engage.
A Marion County judge heard hours of argument Wednesday about whether an Indiana law disenfranchises Hoosiers from running on their preferred primary election ballot. IIB's Alex Brown has more.
At issue is whether John Rust of Seymour can run as a Republican for U.S. Senate in May, but his attorney, Michelle Harder, said the unconstitutional law impacts up to 80% of Hoosiers who would not meet an initial statutory test to run. Marion Superior Court Judge Patrick Dietrich first heard arguments to dismiss the case. If he allows the case to proceed, he will then have to address the merits of the case and the request for a preliminary injunction allowing Rust on the ballot. The law in question requires a potential candidate to have voted in the party primary they want to represent in the last 2 primaries they participated in. Up until 2022, the rule was only 1 primary. Rust voted Republican in the 2016 primary, but Democrat in 2012. That then leaves his fate to a Republican Party chair who has said she won't give him an alternate approval needed. The judge took both matters under advisement and promised to rule as soon as he can. The Indiana Republican Party has already endorsed 3rd District Congressman Jim Banks for Senate in 2024. Alex Brown, Inside Indiana Business Radio.
The Indiana Department of Insurance has revoked the license of an insurance broker in Sullivan. A filing signed this month by IDOI Commissioner Amy Beard says Tanner Reynolds improperly sold policies for personal financial gain. The filing says Reynolds was terminated for cause by Allstate Insurance Company in May for his alleged actions. Reynolds was accused of, quote, writing fictitious policies and by including multiple vehicles not owned by the individuals in whose names the policies were issued. The IDOI noted that Reynolds signed the agreement revoking his license to, quote, terminate and resolve the administrative matter, but it is not an admission of guilt. built. As a result of the order, Reynolds will not be allowed to reapply for his licensure in the state of Indiana. Eli Lilly and Company announced Thursday a third quarter loss of $57.4 million, or 6 cents a share, on higher revenue due mostly to higher research and development costs associated with acquisitions, even as revenue climbed. Excluding non-reoccurring items, the Indianapolis-based drug maker posted adjusted earnings of 10 cents a share, beating Zacks' consensus estimate of a loss of 11 cents per share. Revenue climbed 37% to $9.5 billion in the quarter, driven by growth from diabetes drugs Mounjaro and Jardiance and cancer drug Verzenio, as well as $1.42 billion from the sale of the rights for the antipsychotic drug Zyprexa. Excluding revenue from the Zyprexa sale and COVID-19 antibodies, revenue increased 24%. Lilly cut its full-year adjusted earnings guidance to the range to $6.50 to $6.70 a share, from $9.70 to $9.90. A researcher with the Regent Strife Institute has been awarded $4.7 million to train students and clinicians on detecting early signs of the autoimmune disorder Sjogren's disease. The National Institute of Health awarded a researcher at the institute the grant to train dental students and faculty on using a salivary test to detect a biomarker that identifies the presence of Sjogren's in patients. Sjogren's is a chronic autoimmune disorder affecting connective tissues, has been diagnosed in 4 million Americans, according to a Regent Strife news release, and is more prevalent in women, who make up 9 of every 10 individuals diagnosed with the disease. Early detection of the disease is key, as the average time of diagnosis after symptoms first begin is 3 years. FFA President Molly Ball is this week's guest on the Business and Beyond podcast with Gary Dick, presented by PNC, a weekly conversation with high-profile Hoosiers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. Available now from your favorite podcast provider. I'm Kate Sharon for Inside Indiana Business Radio on Demand.